early morning. I was excited to get this out. Generally, very good news for the most part in CONY and in Misty. Let's get into it. All right, so it was a nail biter with CONY. So let's talk about why. I think some of you that know about this, Grateful Girl, this one is for you. It was a great question. You're really starting to get it. Okay, so when we have these in green, in orange are the weekly expirations that had been written, right? 300, 10,000, 57.50. And what happened, this was written as like 79. Well, when they closed it, they broke it into two different prices, right? They went early with 5,700 of the 76.90, and then they finished up and had to pay 91 cents. But look, we sold it for 440. All right, let me do my little recap on the day. So, coin, we wanted it to go up to 230, 250. Maybe 233-ish, because we had 10,000 written at 235, right? And then we had 7,690, the total of these two, written at 232.50. But when you get $4, technically that takes you up to like 236.90, and we closed at 236.32. So I'm going to answer in detail how they buy these back and how they're different than just the normal option market. Okay, so we went up 5.68. The underlying CONY went up 4.45, right? So we didn't quite do as well as they did because we were starting to get capped on our weeklies. All right, now so let's talk about the key here. This is just absolutely key. We got really lucky and the fund managers did an excellent job, right? So for 2 pennies, they bought back these 300, right? They had sold them for $2.51. So basically, we captured almost all of this. Look, this is the amount they paid us, and this is the amount we had to spend to buy back. Right? So what happened, oops, I didn't drag this one down because I had to split this, right? When I got the little list of what the trades, they broke this one into 2 pieces when they bought it back, whereas they only sold it as 1 piece. So they captured almost all of the 75,000. They captured 3.5 million of the 3.8 million, right? On the 10,000. That was the 235. So they only had to pay 37 cents, right? So obviously they did that a little earlier in the day. If they would have done it at the end of the day, that would have been $1.32, right? That would have been the worst case. 236.32 is $1.32 over. But they were smart enough to do it early. And remind me, I'm going to tell you something about the type of options they use, okay? So the other thing here, they only paid 58 cents, right? So they captured 2.2 million of the 2.5, and down here with the 91 cents paid, but on a smaller amount of contracts, they received 853 and they kept like 680, right? So these are the amounts paid back. So the net, I calculated this separate, guys. So we captured about 5.6 million in the weeklies. And the most we could have captured was 7.2, right? So we captured like 5.6. You can see that this adds up to about 800,000, right? 6, 7, 8, 7, something like that. 870,000 away from the 7.2 million. Okay, and these were written on Wednesday, Thursday, and then on Friday. Look at this bulk, right? After we sold all these guys, we came out here and rolled, right? And we got $5.61. Now, I'm a little upset that they only went out to 255. And the reason is they have earnings, right? They report earnings on Thursday, 5/2, and I believe it's aftermarket. Pretty sure it's aftermarket. Well, if they blow out earnings, and I'm hearing good things about Coinbase's upcoming earnings, then we could turn around and lose, right? And remember, they're going to make a decision Thursday night and publish the declaration payout on Friday morning. So if they run past these weeklies, right, it could impact their thinking. Oh, well, they're going to take a hit there. But the good news is we'd make it all up on synthetic, but it wouldn't be for this payday, right? So there's always that trade-off. So here's what I wanted to explain, and I don't know very many people that really understand this. It's a nuance. The more I've dug into it, the more I've realized it. So I've been trading options for 35 years. So the normal options market that retail, you and I would trade in for those option traders, you can always get the counterparty risk can exercise and then you get assigned. Okay, if I personally wrote an option and I went out and I wrote it at 235 and the trading price was 236.32 and I didn't do anything, I didn't buy it back, for the $1.30, then they would give back to me for every contract 100 shares, right? And so I would have to buy those. That's called an assignment. You can avoid an assignment by buying it back, right, when you drop below, right, or in this case above. So what happens in the kind of market that these traders are in is called flex options. The CBOE and one other exchange, and it's really only for institutional because the minimum contract volume is 150. So even though they do small batches sometimes, the whole point is they're doing enough volume that they're well over 150, right? They're doing thousands. And the second thing, they don't ever face assignment. There is no early assignment. If I write a covered call on a stock, right, and say I got a $100 stock and I write a $105 covered call over 2 months, and 3 days later the stock runs up $40, right, that they could take that stock away from me, right? And puts, they can put it to you, so it can be exercised early because the person holding the other position gets a big gain and they may want to take it. You don't know who it is, but the exchange tracks who's assigned with who, right? So my point is, these guys have to put a request in for a price. It isn't a continuous, constantly updating like I see or you see that are looking at options change, and as the stock trades up and down, the bid and ask on the option changes. Well, in these flex options, they operate slightly different. So sometimes, you'd say, well, why don't they just let it expire and you don't pay anything to get it back? Because you still have to settle in cash. So they know going into the last few minutes, they go, we got a request to pay 1 cent. And the exchange would come back and go, no, it's 2 cents. Okay, right? So I don't know all of the inner workings because I'm not an institutional trader, but I know what the rules are. But the big key reason they do it is they never want to own the underlying, so they use what's known as a European option, not the American option, when they do these flex options. And that means they have no risk of early or ever being assigned. It's always a cash settlement. Now they can buy early, but if they wait to the end, they settle in cash. So sorry for the long rant on that, but it explains a lot more. And I'm telling you, very few people know these details. I have a friend who was an institutional guy for years. He's been retired for 12 years. He's in my Slack group. And he didn't understand these new flex option rules, right? He knew about European and not having an assignment, but he didn't understand all the inner workings because he didn't do those type of options. Okay, and very few retail institutions even allow it, right? I don't know of any that do. Okay, let's jump forward. So we did really, really well. I'm not going to bore you with some of the, let's at least cover the weekly. So here was my complaint, right? We're at 236.20. They wrote 255s and they had a 252. Now they have earnings. If Coinbase has fantastic earnings, they could go up 10% just based on earnings, right? So what is that going to do to our weeklies? We've got 10.2 million, I think, right? We wrote one of them for 10 million. Yeah, we've got 10.4 million setting in weeklies to be captured. But remember, they declare on the 3rd, the morning of the 3rd. These guys get together in the evening, the YieldMax people, and make a determination on the payout. And during that time, probably the earnings would be posted for Coinbase. All right, so what else happened that you care about before I give you the payout stuff? So with earnings on Thursday, weeklies are, in my opinion, they're set way too low. Okay, here's our chart. Nothing else really changed. I'm not going to go through holdings a lot. There were no new shares added. We did come out ahead a little bit in our synthetics, right? We dropped the loss, right? So by moving up, we dropped it to 42 million, and it had just been like 60 million or something, right? So over in holdings, I was showing that, right? We had been at 62, now we're only at 42 on the liability side. All right, let's just get into what you guys care about. So let's get into the payment scenario. So I'm showing $1.83. Now, typically, I know I say this a lot, typically $1.83 is they want to use the short call per share income to pay out. And in a normal situation, that wouldn't be a problem, right? They just pay it. And it's okay with CONY. Misty is a different game, right? So I'm kind of saying this really should be $1.83 to maybe up to 221, because they can use some of this 305 because they had a good month and a carry forward, and they're not like Misty with a negative here, right? So this thing could go up to 250, 240, 250. My gut says, though, based on this amount right now, that we're probably $2 to $2.20. But I want to put a range of $1.83 because they're going to pick probably between $1.83 and 221. So let's go $2, guys. All right, let me jump into Misty. Misty was less of a nail biter, and it also didn't move up as much because their calls weeklies were out further. Okay, so I had double entries here, so that's why you see a 0, 0. So MSTR moved up 3.38%, and in Misty we moved up 202. Now those weren't quite as aggressive of a move up as CONY was. So everybody says BTC, BTC, right? Crypto. But the reality is they're each different animals, right? Crypto didn't do that particularly well. Mr. has billions of dollars of crypto that all their treasury funds own crypto. But Coinbase is the pick and shovel guys, right? They're doing all the transactions for all the people that want to buy cryptos, establish wallets, do all that kind of stuff. All right. So what did we do here? We had like 2.2 million at stake. Well, we basically captured all that money, right? So we only had 4 here. We'd already done this other 5 before. So we paid 10 cents, right? So big deal. We had to pay $40 and we got our 15. Look at this. This is the key one. 660 contracts. We paid 12 cents, okay? And we picked up 2,086,000, almost 2,100 out of almost 2,100, right? So that was an awesome win. And then we had 45 down here where we picked up 94,000, right? So we additionally, for this month in yellow, are all the new writes, right? Now, I'm going to tell you again, I don't think they're far enough out because Mr. has earnings on 4/29 on Monday, right? So this could play negative in there with us as well. So we have 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, yeah, just another 2, 2, right? About 2.2 million for Misty that they could capture this week. If somehow earnings aren't good and it goes down, maybe they'll take that into consideration. But this is all going to happen on Monday. But if Mr. does really well and says something really great and it shoots up, it could impact our payout. Okay, let's look at what they did on the synthetic, which is an 1150. So all they wrote was 12. There were a few shares bought. 50,000 shares were added, right? So they went out and wrote 12. But that cost them money on here. These other, on CONY, they make money when they're doing it because they're underneath their strike price. But we're over our strike price. Thank God, after having that 32 or that 28 million loss. We're in a better situation. We also are back to 10 million in our gain, right? So when I go over here to holdings, that is another plus, right? So we're setting on roughly, you can see it, the difference between these two numbers. So we've got 10 million that we're positive on our, even though it's written as a negative. It's a 10 million profit if we had to close that out. See, this hits us as a negative. Add the 28 million that we lost before on the other synthetic, and when we're having to buy the calls for a greater price than we can sell the puts for because we're well above the strike price, this is a little bit, you know, it cost us money along the way. All right, I'm not going to keep you guys anticipating this. Let's just jump over to the payments. So let me give you this. So 1.64% up, 50,000 shares were added. We went from 3,050,000 to 3,001,000. The bad news on that, and you remember when Misty paid the first time, the 412, was a lot of people bought into that fund because they knew they were going to pay out a lot. And what that does is reduce your payout a little bit, right? Because it's got more shares. It all works out in the end. Let's go to payments. All right, so this is the 28 plus the 4.8, right? So nothing's changed here. This has gone up, right? We collected the 2.3 million. We added 50,000 shares. So in calculating these numbers, look at this. We're up to 2.90, right? But remember what I told you? So this counts the new one we wrote plus what we captured. So it's all looking great. You say, oh, great, we're going to get almost a $3 payout. Hold on. We lost 771 altogether, right? Because this amount of shares over this much on the synthetic is like a $10 loss, right? 10 plus. So that puts us, but what YieldMax likes to do is pay out what they earn in short call. But when you got a big loss like this, right? I did say over here we now have 10.27 million. Now, if this was only a $10 million loss, then I'd say they may give you the benefit of the doubt and just pay this full amount out. I don't see that happening, right? So when I do my math, I take 0.667, which is 2/3, right? And I multiply it and I get my $1.93. So I'm trying to give us and say, well, maybe they'll pay us $1.93 to 2.11. And 2.11 could just simply be, okay, we gave them 68 or 69%, right, of the short call income. But again, if Mr. blows out their earnings and they see these weeklies go awry, even though we would make it up on the synthetic, that's not till 517. So that's what I'm going with. I see CONY paying $2. I see this being awful close to $2. So that's the story, guys. We got lucky. The fund managers did good. I'm happy from how far we've come on this. So I need to get some rest and get into my weekend. All right, I'll say bye for now. Again, I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. All right, have a great rest of your weekend. Bye.